Ferrari's disdain for Pontiac stems from a legal battle over the use of the name GTO in the 1960s. Pontiac released its 1964 GTO, Gran Turismo Omologato, a high-performance car that took inspiration from Ferrari's own GTO models. Ferrari had used the GTO moniker for its 250 GTO, a prestigious race car that became iconic in the automotive world. Ferrari, feeling that Pontiac's use of GTO could confuse the public and diminish the exclusivity of its own brand, filed a lawsuit against General Motors, arguing that the GTO name was a trademark infringement. Ferrari claimed the name GTO was too closely tied to their heritage and brand value. Pontiac, however, argued that the use of GTO was in reference to the car's Grand Touring status rather than the Ferrari model. In the end, Ferrari lost the lawsuit, but the controversy led to significant tension between the two companies. Despite this, Pontiac's GTO continued to be a huge success in the American muscle car market, while Ferrari's GTO remained a legendary symbol of luxury and performance. The rivalry is often cited as an example of how the American and Italian automotive worlds collided during the sports car revolution. Ferrari's reaction was more about protecting its prestigious image and the significance of its brand, while Pontiac's GTO became a hallmark of American automotive ingenuity. The Pontiac GTO is often credited with starting the muscle car era in the 1960s, despite being in production for just 10 years. Introduced in 1964, the GTO quickly became one of the most sought-after cars in American automotive history. Though its production ended in 1974, its legacy continues to influence car culture today. Let's dive into the history of the Pontiac GTO and explore how it earned its legendary status. A team of bold and slightly rebellious engineers at General Motors' Pontiac division, led by John Z. DeLorean, crafted a car that sparked a new market and ignited an automotive revolution. This car, the Pontiac GTO, quickly achieved legendary status and is widely recognized as America's first true muscle car. It was built on a straightforward yet powerful concept that racers had used for years, putting a larger motor into a lighter car. At the time, GM had a policy restricting mid-size cars from having engines larger than 330 cubic inches. However, the Pontiac team bypassed this rule by creating test versions based on the new 1964 Tempest. They managed this because all Pontiac V8s shared the same size and compatibility, regardless of machine displacement. Stuffed with Pontiac's larger 389 from its full-size lineup, the team knew they had created something remarkable. Eventually, they received approval to produce the GTO, initially as an option package for the standard Tempest rather than a standalone model. Fueled by both its impressive output and an effective marketing campaign, the GTO quickly became a sales hit, marking the beginning of one of America's most legendary automobiles. Before long, other brands within GM and across Detroit joined in, sparking the start of the muscle car era. Pontiac had firmly established its reputation for performance with the introduction of its wide-track design in the late 1950s. However, in 1964, a bold vision from a few daring minds at Pontiac, led by John DeLorean, set the stage for an automotive revolution. The first Pontiac GTO began production on September 3, 1963, as an optional package for the Pontiac Tempest-based Le Mans model. It was offered in coupe, hardtop, and convertible body styles. The package priced at $295, and it included a 389 V8 producing 325 horsepower. It featured a single Carter AFB 4-barrel carburetor, dual exhausts, chromed valve covers and air cleaner, and a floor-shifted 3-speed manual transmission with a Hurst shifter. The GTO also came with stiffer springs, a larger front sway bar, wider wheels with redline tires, hood scoops, and GTO badges. The Pontiac GTO was known for its Coke bottle styling, which was inspired by the 1966-67 Tempest Le Mans. By 1966, many cars were trying to copy the GTO, but Pontiac wasn't concerned because sales were still strong. In 1966 alone, nearly 97,000 GTOs were sold. For 1967, Pontiac upgraded the drive system from the 389 to a 400 V8. There were 4 powertrain options: a 265 horsepower 2-barrel, a 335 horsepower 4-barrel, a 360 horsepower 4-barrel, and a special 360 horsepower 400 Ram Air. A total of 72,000 GTOs were built for the 1967 model year. Optional upgrades included a 4-speed manual transmission, super turbine 302 speed automatic, a more powerful tri-power engine with three 2-barrel Rochester 2G carburetors, metallic drum brake linings, limited slip differential, heavy-duty cooling, and a ride and handling package. A tachometer was also available, mounted on the dash. With all options, the GTO's price climbed to around $4,500 and it weighed about 3,500 pounds. The 1966 Pontiac GTO featured a redesigned grille and new double-decker headlights, distinguishing it from the 1965 model. While the tri-power and 4-barrel 389 V8 were carried over with the same horsepower ratings from the previous year, Pontiac introduced a new factory Ram Air option for the tri-power 389. This option was rare, with estimates suggesting only 25 to 35 GTOs were ordered with it in 1966. By this time, it was clear that America loved muscle cars, and the GTO was considered the king of them. In 1968, the Pontiac GTO had become its own standalone model, no longer an option package. The new design featured a more aggressive front grille, a fastback roofline, and a sleeker, wider stance. Under the hood, it sported a robust V8, producing up to 360 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful cars on the road. With a sleek new shape that featured a body-colored Endura front bumper, the 1968 GTO won Motor Trend Car of the Year. That year also marked the second highest GTO sales in history. In 1969, the standout edition was the Judge, a special edition GTO featuring distinctive striping, a rear spoiler, and other unique details to differentiate it from the standard model. The top powertrain option was the Ram Air 4400, officially rated at 370 horsepower, though it's believed to have delivered considerably more power. With this version, the GTO became even more of a performance powerhouse, and the Judge package helped solidify its place in muscle car history. By 1970, Pontiac introduced a new 455 V8, which produced 360 horsepower. This gave the GTO even more power, cementing its status as one of the top-rated cars of the era. The car's overall design became a little more refined, and Pontiac worked to make the GTO a more comfortable ride while still retaining its raw power. By 1971, the golden age of performance cars had begun to wane, as new emission regulations and fuel prices started to affect the market. The GTO's capabilities began to drop, and production numbers decreased. The muscle car era was winding down, and by 1972, the GTO was nearing the end of its production run for this generation. Today, the second-generation Pontiac GTO is highly sought after by collectors, especially rare models like the 1969 Judge and the high-output Ram Air versions. A well-restored second-gen can fetch anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000, depending on the model, condition, and rarity. Some particularly rare models, especially with original parts or enhancement options, can even exceed this price range. Interestingly, it's not just older collectors who are buying these cars. Younger enthusiasts are increasingly drawn to the GTO. While the GTO is a classic, many buyers are looking for cars that can be driven regularly. As a result, some enthusiasts focus on buying cars that are already restored or modified for reliability. These modern touches can make it more comfortable and reliable for daily driving, even if it's still a vintage muscle car at heart. In 1973, the GTO's performance continued to decline due to stricter emissions and fuel economy standards. Pontiac dropped the 455 V8, and the 400 V8 became the main choice. The exterior styling remained similar, but the car had a more luxurious feel, with more focus on comfort rather than all-out raw power. The GTO's nameplate was still in use, but it was no longer the powerhouse it had once been. The 1973 model, now an option package for the Le Mans, introduced a redesigned A-body with colonnade hardtop styling. This change added a roof pillar, replacing the traditional hardtop look but keeping the frameless door windows. The rear side windows were now fixed and triangular in shape. New federal regulations in 1973 required front bumpers that could withstand 5-mile-per-hour impacts without damaging safety-related components, and this led to large heavy chrome bumpers at both ends of the car. The overall design of Pontiac's 1973 A-body intermediates, including the Le Mans, Luxury Le Mans, GTO, and Grand Am, was met with a mixed reception from the public. In contrast, the Pontiac Grand Prix and Chevrolet Monte Carlo, also based on the intermediate A-body platform, were much better received, thanks to their squared-off styling and formal rooflines with vertical windows. Pontiac's sister brand Oldsmobile saw similar success with the Cutlass, which garnered positive reviews from both automotive critics and buyers. The 1973 GTO package was available on two models, the base Le Mans Coupe and the Le Mans Sport Coupe. The base model offered a choice of cloth and vinyl or all-vinyl bench seating, while the higher-trim Le Mans Sport Coupe featured all-vinyl interiors with strato-bucket seats or a notchback bench with a fold-down armrest. Production continued to decline as the demand for muscle cars dropped. Sales declined to 4,806 units, partly due to competition from the newly introduced Grand Am and a lack of marketing for the GTO. As the model year ended, a growing oil crisis further quashed consumer interest in muscle cars. To avoid competing with the Euro-styled Pontiac Grand Am and to tap into the compact muscle car market alongside models like the Plymouth Duster 360, Ford Maverick Grabber, and AMC Hornet X, Pontiac shifted the 1974 GTO option to the compact Ventura, which shared its body and design with the Chevrolet Nova. Gone were the days of 400 and 455 motors. The only available powertrain was a 350 cubic inch V8 rated at 200 horsepower. Sales rose to 7,058 units from the previous year, but it wasn't enough to keep the GTO package alive. Challenges in 1974, including the oil embargo, gas rationing, waning interest in performance cars, and stricter emissions regulations that required lower compression ratios and the use of catalytic converters, led to the GTO's discontinuation. With that, the GTO's 10-year legacy and the first muscle car era came to an end, leaving the model a shadow of its former self. The Pontiac GTO made a comeback after 30 years. In 2004, this time as a rebadged Holden Monaro imported from Australia. It featured independent rear suspension, a 350 horsepower LS1 V8, and a standard 6-speed manual transmission. Reactions were mixed. Some critics found its conservative styling dull compared to the retro look of the Ford Mustang, while others applauded its strong performance, comfortable ride, and quality build, which surpassed many other GM vehicles at the time. In 2005, the GTO received several upgrades, including hood scoops, dual rear exhaust outlets, larger brakes, and a more powerful LS2 V8 producing 400 horsepower. These updates enhanced its dynamics and added to its visual appeal. The GTO continued into 2006 with minor changes, but the end of Monaro production in Australia also brought an end to its 3-year revival. In 2009, as General Motors faced economic recession, it shut down the Pontiac brand, closing the chapter on the GTO for good. Although the GTO's production has ended, its place in automotive history is permanent. The Pontiac GTO's influence can still be seen in every modern performance vehicle, marking it as the car that ignited a revolution in American automotive culture.